Welcome to Guitar Gavel, a place for people who love guitars. These are conversations with musicians, guitar enthusiasts, techs, and collectors about their guitar journey and their love of the instrument. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe button, share with your friends, and be sure to sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Guitar Gavel podcast. Thank you for taking your time to watch and or listen, whatever platform you're doing. Listen, thank you so much for your time. I will introduce our guests here in just a second. If you would please, if you like what you watch or like what you are listening to, if you would please leave a positive 5-star rating. That would be super helpful. Again, thanks for your time, and we'll let it go from here. I'm David Still, and with me this evening, at least on our time, it is evening, I have Scott Olson. Scott is one of my LinkedIn brethren. If you are not new to the Guitar Gavel podcast, either listening or watching, then you've heard LinkedIn a few times. We got a pretty killer guitar musician community on LinkedIn and a bunch of friends. Got this little circle going on, and here's another one of them. Scott's a big advocate, lots of industry knowledge, and he will share all about that. But Scott, thank you, brother, for coming on, man. It's great to meet you in person. We've got a face with a name, not a tiny LinkedIn picture, and it's so good to have you with us tonight.
Hey, it's great to be here, David. I'm glad and honored to be part of this, and happy to spew, as much as I can about the guitars, because guitars have been a big part of my life.
And that's what we were talking about before. And as clearly, if anyone, any of our LinkedIn friends have followed, they know that about you as well. And I can't wait to hear a lot. We don't have all night, but we got a lot of time, and I'll hear a lot about what you know. And I'm excited for that. So the intro question may be getting old for some, but for those that are uninitiated, this is the starting point. Scott, what was your first guitar? When did you start playing, man? And you just take it from there, dude. I'm going to sit back and enjoy the ride.
Okay, well, it was actually the drums that started me towards playing the guitar. I just loved playing instruments, and I got a drum set one year, and I was all right. I was playing, and the kid next door had a guitar and an amp, and he came over and he played, and then I was like, hey, let me, try that. And I really liked it. I liked playing the guitar. So I ended up trading him later on that drum set for a Hohner bass amp, a big Hohner bass amp that I got from him. And, but I wanted to play the guitar. The drums were great and everything, but my cousin played the drums. He was really good. And I'm like, no, I'll play the guitar. Because music was just the be-all and end-all of my life. I love music. I wanted to be involved in music one way or the other. Loved Kiss, and I think that's why I gravitated towards the drums. I loved Peter Criss way back in the day, but it didn't matter. After I picked up that guitar and I played that, I was hooked. I was like, no, I'm playing the guitar. And it was this Con Les Paul, Black Beauty Les Paul, and he had this Vibro, I think it was a Fender Vibro Lux amp, and if you had it on concrete, you got a shock when you stood there and played the guitar. So he always had to have this piece of carpet under it, and I remember that. So I ended up, begging my parents, I want to go take guitar lessons. They got me these drums, and they're like, all right, well. So I started taking guitar lessons. I got this Hondo acoustic guitar that was like a loaner for the lessons, and I was taking lessons for a while, and then this music store opened up by me, and one of my good friend's sister had this Epiphone Caballero guitar. She was trying to play, but her heart wasn't into it, and she saw that I was playing guitar, so she gave me the guitar. She gave the guitar to me in a Yes Songs songbook, this big thick songbook that I had no idea how to read, and but the artwork on it was really cool. So this music store that opened up around the corner. I started taking lessons there, and I'm bringing my notebook in, and the guy's like, "No, you got a long way to go before you can play any of this stuff." And he's teaching me songs, and he was really into the Grateful Dead, and he he was just teaching me Grateful Dead songs, one after another, which is great and everything. But I was more into like Yes and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton and that kind of stuff. And that's the kind of stuff I'm bringing in. I'm like, yeah, show me Badge. The guy's just like, no, here, basic chords and this and that. And that went on for a while, and finally I just kind of gave up because it was boring to me. He wasn't. I don't know. I guess I didn't feel challenged, so I got the Big Note Songbook by Roy Clark. Remember that?
I don't remember that one. My first one was, I'm sure it was was it a Mel Bay something or another? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a Big Note Songbook, and it had the chord charts and everything for 150 different songs in there. But you could teach yourself through playing it, and see the different positions to play everything in. And so I basically taught myself with that. And finally I wanted to get an electric guitar, because playing acoustic was cool and everything, but I wanted an electric. That's what drew me to the guitar, was an electric guitar. Anyhow, I went up to this music store, and they had a couple of just used guitars sitting around. And this one, it was this Tiesco Del Rey, and $75. And I took it, and it was, and I actually looked up to see what model it was, because I couldn't remember. It was an ET100 is what the guitar was. And the action wasn't so bad, but especially compared to an acoustic guitar, it felt about the same to me. So I didn't really matter much to me. It was an electric guitar, and I had it. And that's when I traded the drum set in, and I got that big old Hohner amp. I mean, it was a 100-watt amp, big bass amp. And I would plug it in there, and I was, I couldn't really get any distortion because, it's this big bass amp, and I would turn it up real loud, and it would rattle everything, but I couldn't get any distortion out of things. So the guy I knew next door gave me this little box, this thing called the little Muff Fuzz, and it was like a little box that you plugged into the amp, and then you plugged your cord into it. There it was. There was the distortion. And I had like Black Sabbath like distortion coming out of that thing. And I don't know how my parents put up with that, but man, I just would play and play and play, and that's all I did. I went to school, I came home, and I just wanted to play guitar and associated with other kids that wanted to play guitar, and it seemed to be a big thing. Maybe it was just where I grew up and the people I was around, but I knew a lot of other kids my age, guys my age, that were into guitar, playing guitar, had guitar. After a while, we'd get together, and we were always playing with one another. It was always a group of people, every weekend that you could pretty much say, hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're playing, going, and just get in a little jam circle or whatever and play. And I mean, that was when I was going into high school, more or less. And I ended up seeing this other guitar. Well, started taking bass lessons because everybody's playing guitar and nobody was playing bass. And I said, you know what, I'm going to play bass just to play, just because there's more opportunities to play around with people. And plus, at that age, everybody, you can play some songs here and there, but when you got, 4 or 5 guys trying to play, and everybody's, turning their amp up a little bit more and this and that, and sometimes it would get crazy. I figured, I'm going to play bass, and, let's bring a bass into this thing. And so I started taking bass lessons, and my dad bought me this Harmony jazz bass copy, and I took bass lessons. I learned scales. I learned how to slap and pop. The guy was really cool that taught me. I only took like 3 or 4 months worth of lessons. But I had this bass and I had the bass amp, so I'm playing. But when I would go in there for the bass lessons, I kept seeing this Ibanez Destroyer guitar, and they had it right by the front door. And I would sit and I'd look at it while I was waiting to do my bass lesson. And finally, one day, my dad picked me up and I said, "Dad, I want that guitar." And he said, "Yeah, you want that guitar?" And I think it was like $220. It was, and this is like 1979. So that was, some real money back then. And he said, "I'll tell you what, if you do well on your report card, I'll get it for you." And you'd have to know I was a bad student. So, getting a good report card was to him, but it wasn't because I was dumb or anything. It was just school was just kind of a place to go socialize as far as I was concerned. And so I did. It was enough of an incentive for me to do my homework basically, and I got good grades. And so we went to get the guitar, and and the day we went to get the guitar, I got in a fight in school. So I had gotten suspended, but my dad was really pissed, and but my dad said, "Well, I said, we'll get you the guitar." I said I'd do it, So we went and took it. He begrudgingly took me to get that guitar, and I got it, and I thought this was great because I'm suspended for the next 2 days, and I got this new guitar. I'm going to be home, man. Oh, just goofy. Stupid stuff, and at the time, I think about it now, and it's like, man, my parents were so supportive of me, and they put up with so much of my crap, and I'm really I'm really fortunate because I know some of my friends they had to sneak around to play their guitars, and or come over to my house, and because my parents didn't care. There's a couple people you get away with it. One friend in particular, his basement was basically our little stage. His brother had a drum set down there. He had a guitar, and he started playing guitar because of me. Because I brought this is right after I got that Explorer. I brought that over to his house and had this big old bass amp, man, and the little muff fuzz, and I'm playing these riffs for him, and he's like, "Yeah." And then I didn't hear from him for months, and then he calls me up and he invites me over, and and it was just after Christmas, and his dad worked for Sears, and he got a guitar for Christmas. He wanted a guitar and an amplifier. His dad, I don't know how he did this, but apparently Cort made the guitars for Sears back then. He went to the Cort buyer and he got a Flying V guitar that was done black and white, like Michael Schenker's guitar. And he got this guitar for Christmas. It was cool, one of the coolest freaking gifts ever I would ever seen any kid ever get. But his dad did it somehow through Sears or anyhow, and he had this guitar, so he invites me over. He showed me his guitar, and he's all excited and he's showing it to me, and I took it, man. I was just like, "Dad, wow." I was almost ready to trade my Ibanez for that thing, but he ended up especially a guitar friend. He would go through guitars and amps, and through high school, it was just every weekend we were either playing with each other or playing with people, and his parents put up with this stuff because it was amazing. At this point, then I wanted a single coil guitar, so I got a Fender Lead 2 that I saved money from my graduation from going into high school, and I bought this Fender Lead 2, and then I got this job doing various, like throwing boxes out and stuff at this liquor store by my house. Yeah, that's how old I am. I actually could work at a liquor store at like 13, 14 years old. And they would give me, $10, $15 a week. but I'd saved up the money, and then I wanted a really good amplifier, and I always got the Carbon catalogs, and I would sit and read these Carbon catalogs and ogle over them for hours, look at all these Carbon guitars and big walls of amps, and I thought Carbon, you didn't see anybody using Carbon stuff. I think, back then I didn't know anybody who used Carbon. I think I saw somewhere that Frank Zappa used Carbon stuff, and I was like, oh, Frank Zappa. I mean, well, stuff must be good, So I said, all right, I'm going to get a Carbon amp, and I got a Carbon amp, and I still have it to this day.
Yeah,
I love that amp. X60. I love. It's probably the only thing I still have from back in that period that's this long that I haven't traded off or broken, torn apart, or sold or whatnot. Yeah, I still have that amp, that Carbon amp, and I've always had a soft spot for Carbon, and still have never gotten one. But one day, a Carbon guitar, I will. Well, it's a Kaisel now, so it's not even a Carbon guitar, but there's plenty of Carbons out there, and I'm sure I could find a good one on Reverb. A DC 110, beautiful maple with bird's eye maple body. Oh, those guitars! I just think
your
about
dream?
them.
Is that your dream guitar?
I don't know. I mean, I guess for me, any guitar that I could dream of, I feel like I could just build it for myself, So, yeah, I guess that's a good question, David. A really good question. Yeah, it's probably one of my dream guitars. Yeah. And I don't know if I have one dream guitar. I probably have a couple. That's certainly right up there. That's for sure.
So I'll back up one second. So you're playing an Ibanez Destroyer, and your good guitar buddies playing a knockoff V, a Court Flying V. Like y'all had some pretty sick looking guitars between the two of you at that time. And what color was your Destroyer? I've got to know.
It was natural. It was a natural finish guitar. I wish I had I have a picture of, like, a Polaroid picture of it. I don't have any pictures of it. I wish I had pictures of that guitar. I have a Polaroid picture of me playing it, and that's about the only picture I have of it. But it was a natural. It was, it looked like a Gibson Explorer. I mean, it was, but with that, beautiful guitar. I love that guitar. I played the heck out of that guitar. I got that Fender lead too, and it was a brand new guitar and everything, and it was kind of new for Fender. It was they had just come out with these models, but I guess I've always been a humbucker person, and through that, and I've always just loved Gibson guitars and Gibson Les Pauls. I sit and look at Gibson Les Pauls, and just, to me, that was the guitar. Until I heard Charvels, and and then I was like, I gotta have a Charvel. That actually became an obsession late in high school. Was a Charvel. How do I get a hold of one of these guitars? How do I get one? Because a few people use them, like George Lynch used them. I knew this story about Eddie Van Halen and Charvel. Jakey Me used them. So I knew these guitars were out there. I just didn't exactly know how do I get my hands on them. And then they got bought by Fender, and they ended up making a first run of those guitars in Japan, branded Charvel guitars. And as soon as I could get one, I went to the music store, and it was gone. I mean, probably the day the thing put it in the rack, I took that thing home, and I just wanted it. And I love the neck on it. Squeals that I could get with the harmonics on that guitar were just unlike anything else. And man, I mean, it's right behind me. It's right there. That guitar, still with me to this day. I love that guitar. I mean, it's so simple, but it's been through hell and high water with me. And when I worked at Hamer, I had it the neck scallop from the 12th down, so it's got scallop frets there, and it had a custom paint job on it. Huh? Was it?
Can you take it off the wall, Scott?
Let me grab it.
Yeah, let's do it. And I'm
Yeah,
going to make you full
Charvel. But maybe you can see the scalloping. I don't know. It's kind of hard.
No, we can see it.
But this is a grunge guitar. I mean, it's.
Yes. Now you've got a story about the artistry on the guitar. So tell us about that.
Yeah, the artistry. It's me and a number of people through the years that I have this guitar at different places, various events, playing, whatever. When I worked at Washburn, it was at my bench, and I would give it to people and, let them draw on it. I'd give them a pen, come up with designs, put a little bit of yourself on the guitar. And it's through the years, it's just kind of built up like that. And I think it's really cool. And it's the reason that body's still around. It's hard to see, but there's a big crack that goes all the way through that whole body. But, it's still solid. But there's a big crack, and eventually I'll replace the body. I'll build a body for it. But man, that guitar is just nostalgia to me. It's a piece of my history in a big way. I love that guitar. Yeah. What can I say? I mean, I sit here and I got this, Les Paul Custom, which, at one time to me was like the holy grail of guitars. And don't get me wrong, it's a great guitar. I love it too. But it's not that Charvel, man. That Charvel is just, that's my baby. I mean, next to my wife, I think that's the thing I love most in the world is that Charvel.
I mean, it carries around a piece of your heart and soul, man. I mean, it does. So that therefore, that's why it has that special place for you.
Yeah, and now that I'm showing some guitars, let me grab another one here. Just to go back to, since we're not so far away from the Flying V, that my friend had his black and white Flying V. But here, I built this basically because I wanted a Flying V, and I was gonna make it black and white, but I decided no, it looks so cool just white. I just kind of kept it. But yeah, I wanted a Flying V, so I ended up, like I said, I don't have a dream guitar. I'll just build it for myself. But that's
a great problem.
But I built that thing I got plans for that's built off of a 69 Flying V. I have big full-size plans for 69. I don't know what year. I think the original Explorer and a 59 Les Paul, which I got those plans, and I got them because when I worked at Hamer, we built I had a 59 Les Paul built by Hamer based, to spec when I worked there. It cost me $1,800, and it was a pain in the ass to get built because they didn't want to do it, and they would have rather I bought one of their models, but I was adamant, and luckily the the one manager there was really cool, and he probably did some things he probably shouldn't have done to help me get that guitar built. But yeah, I mean, and I will actually have to post. I have a couple pictures, and I'll post it on the LinkedIn. That guitar was stolen when I had my shop. I had a shop for a period of time. I built, repaired, refinished guitars, pianos, whatever. And the shop was broken into, and I lost a number of guitars of my own, some customers' guitars, and a bunch of shop equipment. Ended up turning into a big deal with me and the landlord, and it ended up being the end of that business. One of a few reasons, but that was basically the final nail in the coffin. So, that left a real bitter like, pit in my stomach. I still have it when I think about that, just because I lost so much out of that. And it was
tough to
it was a,
like that.
huh? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, that was a part of your soul as well. It's tough to get over a loss like that. That's completely understandable.
Yeah,
But
like I said, guitars. I started working at Hamer Guitars because I built a guitar when I was 14 years old. I bought a Mighty Mite kit that it was just a Strat. You put threw the thing together, had all actually, I think if I remember right, the only electronics you even had to solder on it was maybe the jack to the back of the pick guard. And I built that guitar, and then I painted it, like a white color. And I had that guitar. I was really proud of it. And I ended up taking that guitar with me to when I went to Hamer Guitars to apply for the job, and that's how I got hired. I saw Glenn or Joe Danzig, handed him the guitar, and he was like, "Oh, well, what do you like to do with guitars?" He says, "It's a nice guitar. What do you like? What aspect?" And I said, "I like the finishing." So I ended up in the doing finishing and assembly of the guitars at the end for going on like 2 years that I was there. And I was there for when he came and bought Hamer. That was the time that happened right when I was there. So I was real familiar with the takeover and so on and so forth. And it was a great place because it was a lot of the people that worked there had been there from the beginning in one form or another, and a lot of longtime employees, and there was just a real loyalty to that company. And I still have a certain loyalty to it, even though I left there to go work for Washburn. But I was just trying to work myself up in guitars. It was a better position, more money, and it was, and then it was also a case of the grass is always greener too. I went to Washburn, and yeah, I had a really good job there. I made decent money, but it was a night and day difference between the kind of guitars I was working with every day. It was kind of eye opening, to be honest. And I think that's eventually what got me in trouble in that place. Was I'm a real big proponent of quality, and just that was my job. I was a quality control person there, and we'd get the guitars, and then the quality, which I shouldn't even say, the quality was different for every load that came in, depending. It wasn't consistent. So I remember, I think it was on one of these, somebody was talking about putting a big hot iron on the necks to get bows out of necks. Oh yeah, I know all about that. I could tell you about that day in and day out, man. I had one of those right at my bench, But it was a great job because I worked with a lot of awesome guitars. You know, I'm just on top of it. And one of the things that was good for me was I was good at taking, slightly damaged stuff, and I've always been good at, bringing it back to as close to new as possible, refurbishment, and so on and so forth. So the sales guys loved me because they had these racks of big old guitars that had, little things wrong with them here and there or whatever. And they knew what was in there, and they would go and tell me, go get this guitar, and I would go get it, and I would, do whatever, and they'd go and they'd sell it, and they'd make money. And, and these guys are pretty good to me, especially around Christmas time. They'd remember that I made them a little bit of money, and they would, give me a bottle of this or whatever. But, it was just, and I was just a kid, I was in my early 20s at that point. So I just was loving it because it was just, I'd go to work every day, I'd play guitar, work on guitars, do guitar stuff. And at night, it was either I was working with a band or playing with a band or going out and seeing somebody's band, or, so it was music constantly, all the time. It was just, and that's what I wanted. I mean, that's what I wanted from a young age. And here I was doing it, and I was seeing various aspects of it, and later on, I ended up getting into, more serious of playing in bands, more serious, trying to go towards the music business as opposed to the manufacturing of guitars and so on and so forth. And, there was some opportunities that I kind of went for, but I got discouraged by the business side of music as opposed to the creative side. And the creative side excited me, but the business side just demoralized the shit out of me. And it's hard. It's a very hard life too, especially if you tour. It's a grind. And, I mean, on both sides of it, as a performer or as even just as a technician, I worked on part of the Motley Crue Theater of Pain tour as a technician. I was supposed to do guitars and backline, and I ended up doing a little bit of that, but mostly just whatever needed to be done here and there. And I think I lasted like 8 or 9 shows, and I just was like, wow, I can't do this. So, so I saw some of the music industry, and I just wanted to get out of it, but so I started just doing more tech work and guitar repairs and that kind of stuff, and playing with my own band, locally, and and just kind of kept it at that, and just kind of kept accumulating guitars along the way. When I see something I liked, I always I didn't hesitate to pick up guitars if I could. If I could afford it, it was, to me, I'm sure I had skewed priorities, and to some people would say that's probably why I lived. Well, I was a bachelor until I was 40 years old, but but I had a lot of nice guitars. One of the guitars that I ended up selling, and I wish I hadn't, was an ES 175, 93 ES 175. Next to that Charvel, man, that guitar was just unbelievable. Oh man, it just had this feel and tone, and man, I mean, just a great guitar. And I'm sure I couldn't do the guitar justice, because I watch guys that post the stuff I see on LinkedIn, like Ian and Steve Kuykendall, and these guys are really good, and I've always considered myself an adequate guitar player. A guitar like that, and Ian Cohen's hands, I mean, he would love it. I mean, I wish I could play like him and have that guitar. I mean, in my head, I'm playing like that, but I'm sure it doesn't sound like that.
Yeah, but
But
what?
that guitar,
Sounding good in your
I
head
really love.
is a lot of fun too, man. because if no one else is listening, as long as it sounds good to you, then you're having fun. That's cool. Scott, when you were after Hamer and Washburn, and you were doing more tech guitar repair, where were you living then at that time?
Well, I was still in the Chicago area, but I was bouncing around all the time. I would bounce. I went out to Arizona for a while. I remember going up into Pacific Northwest for a while. But primarily it was if I needed a place, I could just always just go to stay at my parents' house. They always had a room for me. But I was bouncing around, and then I had my own places when I was working. Obviously, when I was more stable. But when you're kind of touring, working, you just bounce. I mean, it's hard to have a stable place to stay. You end up, with people here and there for a period of time, and then it's on to the next thing. So, that's I'm a body, so I much prefer to be home, and home is where my heart is. And sometimes you got to go to extremes to find that.
Yeah, you do, and it takes you back to where you need to be. While we're talking about some of the guitars, Scott, you still got quite a few behind you. You want to give a little rundown of a few that are hanging, or all,
Sure.
whatever floats your boat. You do you, and we'll listen and watch.
Well, here's the old Cabronita. This is a 2012 Fender, American-made Fender Telecaster, the Cabronita model. I did a post on LinkedIn about it. Um, this guitar was actually given to me as a gift by my cousins, because they knew I wanted a Telecaster. I lost a Telecaster previously; it was stolen. So they surprised me and they gave me this guitar. And it's been around, and I've played it here and there. But I sat down and I gave this thing. I cleaned it up and I put new strings on and I played it. And it's got these TV Jones Filtertrons on here, so it's a little dirtier than your usual
Yeah.
Telecaster. That's why they call it the Cabronita, the little devil, or the little bastard. That's, I guess, what Cabronita comes out to in Spanish, and it is a little bastard. I mean, it's simple. It's got volume and a three-way switch on it. There's nothing to it, but it's a great guitar for like jazz, country, alternative music, rock and roll. It's definitely not like a metal guitar at all. I mean, it's not that type. It's got a real good jangly sound to it, and I like it. I just, like I said, more or less familiarize myself with it. It's been sitting there, and it's only been the last couple of years, year and a half, that I've started coming back to playing guitars, more hardcore. So, I'm kind of reacquainting myself. The Charvel, I know that thing. The Les Paul, I know that. I know those guitars. I've played them enough times. I know them. But some of these other guitars, I've only had them, and I've only played them so many times. So I tried to break them out and give them, try to remind myself, well, just what do I have here? I mean, and I want more. So
Well, what keep going down the line there. What's you've got the LP custom, and then is that a Ibanez? What's over your left shoulder? The blue one.
yeah, it's a Jackson.
Wow.
It's reverse headstock. It's a Jackson Dinky. I wanted a guitar with a Floyd Rose. I'm not a big Floyd Rose or a whammy bar person per se. I always pretty much played hardtail, just because my role has always been more or less a rhythm guitar player as opposed to a lead guitar player. But I wanted to have a guitar that had something that I could, dive bomb with and do the pinch harmonics and all that without it going out of tune. So I figured I'd pick up a Jackson, and I got this. God, I don't even know how long ago. Probably 10 years ago. And it's a great guitar. It's got weak pickups. That's the one thing, and that's going to be an upcoming project. I'm going to change out the pickups. It's got the weak pickups in it. They're probably just whatever. I don't know where this was made. It was probably made in Korea. That's my guess. But it's a nice guitar, small, and it's does what I want it to do. Like I said, I'm an adequate guitar player. All I really need is one guitar like that, and I'm happy. I'm not a big whammy bar guy. I'm not Eddie Van Halen. I'm not, Randy Rhoads.
Yeah.
I can play rhythm guitar and chords like crazy, and even that's getting harder and harder now as I'm getting older. My hands just don't do what they used to do. They disappoint me sometimes. The hands, sometimes they can't keep up with each other. One hand moves at a different speed than the other. But I think that's also because I don't play near as much as I did when I was younger, when I played all the time, just constantly. But muscle memory,
It doesn't go away.
Let's see. Well,
it doesn't go away. Yeah.
This is one of my guitars. I built this. I put it on LinkedIn right after I finished it up. This is basically all me, with the exception of the hardware. I mean, it's all raw wood, and I turned it into this. I built this guitar years and years ago. I built the body of the guitar, and I built it because I went and saw Pat D'Annunzio of the Smithereens. He used to do these shows where he would come to people's living room and he would play in their living rooms. And I went and saw this show. This guy I knew, I think it was paid like $25,000 or $3,000 or something to have him come and do this. And went over there and did an intimate show, and he had a Fender that was hollow like this. And I'd never seen that before. And I was like, okay. I made a mental note. And then when I had my guitar company, I went and I built one, because I was thinking about, I want a guitar like that. And for whatever reason, it got put in with all the rest of the various pieces and ephemera that I accumulate. And when I moved last year, I found the body and put it back in my head. I'm gonna finish that thing. And I started accumulating the other parts through what I had. I think the only thing I really bought for this was I had the pickup covers was the only thing I really had to buy. All the rest of the stuff I had just laying around in pieces. The neck was I had from guitars that I built when I built my own guitars. So I just put it together, and I'll tell you what, it's a pretty nice guitar. I like it. It's got a little different sound than a Strat because it does have this semi-hollow body on it. It gives you this. It's like a twangy. I don't even know how to explain it. I should plug it in, but then I gotta warm up my amps.
That's what I say too, man. Yeah.
But this thing, it's got a different sound. I mean, what would be really cool is if it was a 12-string. I think that would be a really cool guitar. In a 12-string version, it would be probably really much easier to play than like some of the Rickenbacker 12 strings where the necks just seem, the strings just seem forced on the neck on those 12 strings. So maybe that's something I can think about there. I can always, change it up again. That's to me that's what guitars are for the most part. They're just, I don't know. I can take it apart and redo it and this and that. I love them like that. Just in so many ways. Oh, God, I just love them. I really do.
That's so awesome. Well, all right, so you got a couple more behind you on the ground, or in a stand. Curious to see what those are. Then of course you pulled that V out of nowhere. I don't know where that came from, but
Yeah, that's behind me. That's all that's over there. Well, this is just my acoustic. It's an Epiphone Hummingbird, basically. I think I got this in 2014. But I got this because I lost a Carbon acoustic, and I had sold a Martin D28, and I didn't have an acoustic guitar, and I needed something. This was fairly low priced, and I bought it. And I had an Epiphone as one of my first guitars, so I thought, I'm gonna stick with an Epiphone, and I got it. It's been a really good guitar for me. Only other thing I got over there is this little short. It's a short scale Squire Bronco bass. This is actually my stepdaughter. This is hers. It's just over here because I was borrowing it. I wanted a bass because I was working on some songs and I needed a bass for a bass line. I wanted to.
yeah.
So she let me borrow it. But she's a guitar player as well and plays in a band. And she's taken after her stepdad. I taught her how to play the guitar, and I tell her I'm her biggest fan. So I'm trying to pay it forward.
Speaking of the bass, so we're going back there to your kind of later high school years. Did you continue to play the bass out or in your jam groups, or that kind of come and go, and you learn how to play the bass and you can play the bass when needed?
No, I did play in some bands. I actually did just play bass, and I would just play with people just to fill in. But I enjoy playing the bass. Like the other day, I just picked up the bass, and I went and I was trying to do as much of Yes Roundabout as I could on that little short scale bass, and so and I'm probably actually in reality I can play the bass probably pretty well. I mean, I know how to fit into that pocket, in between the drums and the guitar. So, so it's really easy for me. But the guitar is much more of a challenge, and to me, it's just it's like there's no comparison between. To me, the bass it's great and everything, but it's the bass. I know I say that. Probably pisses off a lot of people, but it's not guitar. It's the bass. It's 4 strings. It's not 6 strings. And I know there's other string basses. I know.
There'll be a comment in the comment section. Yeah, they don't all have 4 strings, Scott.
No, I know. I'm really such a traditionalist in a lot of ways when it comes to guitars. I like what I like, I guess, but I'm a traditionalist. I love those old Sunburst guitars, man. I mean, when I was a little kid, I'd sit and look at the album cover for the Ventures in the back cover, and they had the picture of them with those Moserites, and I just sit there and, oh man, I love those guitars and the Sunburst sound, and looking through the Sears catalog and the guitars that they'd have in there, and just sunburst, and that the sunburst of a Fender guitar. In fact, it's not here right now. I I got a big picture. It's actually in the other room of that I framed. It's from a Fender ad from back in the 1970s of the caterpillar from the Alice in Wonderland sitting on top of a toadstool playing a precision bass and playing a Stratocaster and smoking up a hookah, and Alice is sitting there watching him play. I got that in a frame in the other room. I mean, that's the stuff. I just love that stuff. I love that old vintage Fender Sunbursty. Oh, I don't know. I can't explain it. I know I'm weird, but I think there's other people with the same kind of weird. So I feel a little safe to express it. Oh.
Well, the Sunburst scheme is classic. And to your Mosrite statement, I saw one in a store in Nashville a few months ago, an original Mosrite with the classic, the Sunburst, and it was out of all of the guitars in the building, which there were hundreds and hundreds of, it struck me the most. It stuck out. I don't know. I don't know if it had anything to do with the carved top, was playing into it. It was kind of by itself, but there was a guitar, I think, at least above it on the wall because it was on like a pillar in the store. But it was phenomenal. To your point, to where those of us that are listening that understand what you're saying, I'm picking up what you're putting down, man. I feel it.
Yeah, it's funny because it's just like, when I was a kid or a teenager, guitars had more appeal to me than girls in a lot of ways. Not that I wasn't attracted to girls and everything, but if I was walking past the store and there was a pretty girl and there was a beautiful Sunburst Les Paul, I think I probably would have been paying more attention to that Les Paul. And I don't know if I should admit that or not, but it's true,
You're in good company.
I just love guitars, and I love seeing other people love guitars, and then what I especially love about this LinkedIn is the people who post themselves playing these songs and this and that, and really just the enjoyment, and I get equal enjoyment just watching what they're doing, and someday I hope to join them as soon as I can figure out how to put it all together the way these guys have it. It's amazing. But yeah, I it'll be guitars till my dying day. That I can safely say. One or the other.
I feel that too. Why don't we? That is the perfect ending note right there. Guitars till your dying days. That could be the tagline. That'll be the title of this episode, man. This is great.
Sounds good to me.
Scott, this has been a blast. Listen, man, thanks so much for your time. I'm gonna shut us down here in a second, but don't go anywhere. We'll hang out offline and hang out for a little while longer. To everyone that's watched, thanks so much for your time. To everyone that's listened, thanks so much for your time. That's your biggest asset, and to take an hour out of your day, your evening, wherever you may be, and to check out this podcast, we really appreciate it. So thanks so very much. If you enjoyed it, leave a good review, and if you made it this far too, be sure to check out the Guitar Gavel newsletter at guitargavel.com. Thanks so much, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Scott, hang in there, man. I will see you in just a sec. Thanks for tuning in to the Guitar Gavel podcast, and a special thanks to Steve Kuykendall for composing this music and being such the great guy and friend that you are. As a reminder, hit the subscribe button and sign up for our twice weekly newsletter at guitargavel.com.